focused. Don't talk about what you're going to do. Don't just dream about what you're going to do. Don't criticize somebody else for what they're not doing. You be it. Be about it. Be about that action and go do it. Keep your eye on your intention. Don't let any outside distraction or your own insecurity stop you from your goals.
Hey, you guys. Okay, so today I wanted to do a crime story time. And this one, I took an interest in this one because it's close to my hometown that I'm from. It's actually it happened in my hometown that I'm from. I'm from Saginaw, Michigan, and this happened in the township of BV, which is Buena Vista. And before I get started, I just want to do a disclosure and say that I mean no disrespect to the family of the loved ones or of the victims. I just want to do this as educational and informational purposes. Everything is public record, and I got everything from off of a public forum. So before I get started, I just want to send my condolences, even though it's been a while since this happened. A lot of stuff you don't get over to the families if they were to come across this video. I do send my regards for this tragic situation. So before I get started, also, I wanted to say that my mukbang today is some nachos that I made. I have sour cream, onions, tomatoes, some rotel, some chips, and I like to mix my chips with the plain chips and Doritos, and some regular cheese. So this story happened in, I want to say, I'm not sure if it was August, the month of 2011 or 2012. I wasn't quite clear on that part, but the young lady's name and trigger warning, I smack too, so if you don't like smacking, this might be hard for you to follow this story because I smack. So the young lady's name is Jenny Webb, and Jenny Webb was a 32-year-old female woman, young woman. And she was a single woman. But as you know, most of us, or most people, have somebody that they're dealing with, even though they're single. Well, there was someone that Jenny was dealing with at that time, but the person that she was dealing with was married. Now, friends and family described Jenny as a fun-loving person. Everyone loved her. Her personality was like a magnet. Everyone loved to be around her. She was the life of the party. And she was a humble person, a kind person, looked out for people. She had a best friend at the time, and her best friend had twins. And her best friend, I want to say that her name was Andrea. I had to refresh my memory through my notes. So thanks to Andrea, you could put some of the pieces together of this tragic story. So, getting back to Jenny, she had never had kids before, and you know, she wanted kids. The person that she was messing with, which I'll say name later, she had known him for like years, over maybe 10 years. So she ends up getting pregnant by the married man who she had been messing with. And like, it was a secret who she was messing with, but it kind of wasn't, because, you know, while she was messing with him, most of her family didn't know much but her friend of who it was. But when she got pregnant, her mom was like, well, you weren't really dealing with anybody that I know of, so who's the father? So she told them who her child's father was. So she was so happy about the baby. She understood that his situation wasn't going to allow him, you know, to be with her, which, according to her family, she wasn't trying to be. She was really just happy to be having the baby. So she started buying a house, getting everything together for the baby, and just preparing to be a mom, basically. So now, fast forward, she's now 8.5 months pregnant. So the baby's almost here. And she goes to her friend's house, Andrea, and she helps her out with her twins one day. And I think this was in like late August of 2011 or 2012. And she helps her with the twins, and she tells her she can't stay long because she's gonna go talk to her child's father about whether he was gonna be put on the birth certificate or not, or, you know, child support, how they were gonna handle that because of the situation with him and his marriage to somebody else. So she said she was gonna go talk to him that night. So her friend said she told her bye. She didn't tell her where she was going, but she told her who she was going to see. And she said, I'll see you tomorrow, same time. So she left. About a few hours later, her body is found. With a rope around her neck tied to the hood of her car. And she's laying on the side of her car. And the police found her that way. So, the first cop on the scene that saw her like that was Officer Ken Blue. And then a little while after that, another officer pulls up, and Ken Blue tells him, but his name was Sean Waterman. Sergeant, I think it was Detective Sean Waterman was the second police officer on the scene. And so Ken Blue told him, how are we going to deal with this? And Sean was like, well, how long have you been, out here? He's like, I just got out here and I was about to call you. So they start taking pictures, and Ken Blue is the one taking the pictures, and the other cop is, calling for backup and checking the scene for evidence. And they found this suicide note. And the suicide note was saying things like, I'm ashamed of, what I've done, and I just don't want to lie anymore, or, I feel like everyone will be better off, without me. And it was just saying like a lot of different things that somebody who would, going to kill themselves would say. So they took the suicide note into evidence, and they basically had everyone come out, and they cleared the scene and wrote it up as a suicide. And they went to her once they, knew who she was, because the cop, the cop named Ken Blue, got her ID out her purse, and he said, oh, he was like, I know her. He was like, I've seen her around town. So the cops, they went to the mom's house, the Sean cop, Sean Weathers or whatever. They went to tell the parents that she had killed herself. And they brought her the note. So her mom is reading the note. And as soon as her mom starts reading the note, she can't even read it no more. She just stopped like a little bit into reading the note and said, this isn't my daughter. She wouldn't say anything like that. She was telling them that, for one, if this was her, the writing would have not been typed, because it was a typed letter. She said she would have wrote it in some glitter pen, or she would have had an individual personal letter to each of us. My daughter was not, suicidal, and this is not her words. The mom said she instantly knew, like, something is not right. She said, my daughter may be dead, but she didn't write this. And she didn't commit suicide. So the detective was like, well, do y'all know who her the baby's father was, because the baby, you know, sadly didn't make it either. And her father and her mother was like, yeah, we know exactly who her child's father was. And they said Ken Blue. Ken Blue, the police officer that was first on the scene. It was him. He was the father of her child. So the officer said he said that was like the worst shock of his life. He says like his heart dropped when he heard that name, because he was so confused, like, oh my God, you know, he was on the scene. He took the evidence. So they eventually, you know, called in another investigators, because, well, they had to call in the Michigan State Patrol at this point, because you can't investigate your own police in your police department. You can't do that. That's illegal. So they had to call in the state patrol. So they basically called in the Michigan State Police. And they called him in for questioning. And nothing about his, you know, response to their questions seemed legit. I mean, you can just tell that he's not telling them the truth. So they're asking him where he was, did he know her, things like that. How you not recognize, you know, who she was. And at first, Ken Blue lied and said he never had slept with her, because he didn't know that the police knew that he was the father of her baby, or that she at least said that he was the father. And people knew, because he thought that it was just between them. He didn't think nobody knew. So he tried to tell us a lie and say he never slept with her. Then he revamped his story after he was signing some papers, and they told him and explained to him, well, her family said that she's saying that you're the father of her child. But I did, you know, sleep with her a few times. So then he, you know, told the truth about that. But he was saying it wasn't his baby. He found her there that night. So once Sergeant Alan OGG from the Michigan State Police started his investigations, and they had no crime scene, so which would have made it hard, but he was confident that he was going to figure out something to prove what really happened to her. So he went back to the crime scene. Forensics went to the crime scene, and they couldn't find nothing at first. All they saw was like some flip-flops, and they didn't know whose flip-flops those were. So that wasn't, you know, any evidence or any help. But as they kept looking further, and they went to like kind of off location from where she was actually found, they came across a cigarette butt, a charm, and a blood splatter in this location. And they thought, bingo. So they took that evidence back to be tested. And lo and behold, it came back as the cigarette butt was a match for Ken. The charm was a match for Jenny. And the blood was a match for Ken. Ken also had, they noticed he had a scar on it, scratch. And then when they were questioning him, they were like, what happened to your face? He said, oh, I was playing with my dog. My dog scratched me. But when he was playing with his dog before work, he was sitting down eating lunch before what happened to Jenny. And whoever he was sitting with confirmed that he did not have nothing wrong with his face when he was sitting across from him eating lunch prior to the time that she was murdered. And then also, some more evidence was the officers, well, one of the officers, which I don't know this one's name, it could have been Deshaun Waterman. I think it was Deshaun Waterman. He was looking for the officer, Ken Blue, at the time that Jenny was being murdered. And he was not answering his phone. And that's why he came to that location. Because that's usually where Kim would go to sleep in bullcrap or hide out on duty. Was in that location. That's where he met Jenny that night. So basically, he just looked guilty all the way around. Because he couldn't explain why he wasn't answering his mic. He couldn't explain why he was looking weird when Officer Waterman pulled up to him. He was just like, he said he looked at like he was sweaty and exhausted, like he been fighting. And he didn't think nothing of it at the time because, you know, he thought because of him coming across a dead body, that might be his adrenaline. So, you know, it didn't really stand out at that moment. So basically, with all the evidence against him, the blood, the DNA on the, they even found on that piece of paper that, suicide note. It also said that they had found his fingerprints, full fingerprints, all over it. And when I'm just going to tell y'all what happened to her because this is what really sealed the deal on his conviction. So allegedly, he invited her there to talk to her. And either they got into it or we'll probably never know what really happened because he's never admitted his guilt. He's always claimed innocent. But the evidence showed that there was some kind of struggle. He used a chokehold on her to kill her. And then dragged her from the spot where they saw the evidence to her car. And they don't know if he put her in the car and drove the car to that location or drug her to the car that was already in that location. Like if they were outside the car talking and then they got in a scuffle and he chokehold her right then and there. And then he somehow dragged her over to the car. But while they were scuffling and he was chokeholding her, some time in between there, she bit his finger. She bit his thumb. So his thumb was bleeding, and that's where the blood came from, because they found his blood all in the backseat of her car, where he probably put her body out while he tied her neck up and tied it to the car to make it look like a suicide, and then probably push her out the car. And they found a fingerprint on the letter that was the whole fingerprint. So they were like, okay, so he handled this suicide letter before he killed her. Because if he had handled the letter after she bit his finger, those fingerprints would have not been, you know, like they were. So he had this note on him to take out there. So that proved that it was premeditated, what he did to her. It wasn't just, we got into an argument, he got mad, and he just snapped. It was a setup. Like, he went out there to kill her. And it's just sad because two people, her baby and her, unfortunately, was murdered that day. But because of the state laws in Michigan, they couldn't charge him with only one murder. So right now he's doing life in prison because of what he done. And that's pretty much the story. I have to be careful out here. So, yep, it was just an unfortunate situation, and that's my story for today, you guys. So, if you enjoy my story time, there'll be more to come. I have a few more stories that I'm working on. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share a story that you have. I'd love to read them. I'm full. I finished all my food. I can't believe I did. So, on one of these, Wednesdays, soon, it will be Work Out With Me Wednesdays, because I don't want to keep eating unhealthy and it catch up with me. So, I want to be skinny. I want to be snatched. Yeah, so enjoy your evening. I hope you enjoy my story time, and the champ is out.